tackle migration, Europe must step up efforts outside its borders. Evariste Bartolo is Malta's Minister for European and Foreign Affairs. Valletta, for too long, Europe has buried its head in the sand when it comes to tackling migration. Although White House proposes new $916 billion stimulus plan to break deadlock. The White House unveiled a $916 billion stimulus proposal on Tuesday, in a final dash to break a months-long logjam over new aid for the coronavirus-stricken U.S. economy before President Until recently, pressure on Australia to drop carry-over credits had little impact. But times change. Political pressure makes the impossible inevitable. Unfortunately, so much has been written about how democracy is broken, that it can seem churlish to point out that sometimes it works just Honda says production at UK factory to pause due to car parts shortage. Honda is to pause production at its UK plant on Wednesday because of a shortage of car parts caused by delays in getting parts into Britain in the run-up to Dr. Congo crisis deepens after fresh clashes in Parliament. A spiraling political crisis in Dr. Congo saw more clashes on Tuesday in the country's trashed parliament, after which MPs supporting President Felix Tshisekedi moved to oust the majority party. Anu, the god of gods, agreed that their labor was too great. His son Enki, or Ea, proposed to create man to bear the labor, and so, with the help of his half-sister Ninki, he did. A god was put to death, and his body and blood was mixed with clay. From that material the first human being was created, in likeness to the gods. The tablet text says, "You have slaughtered a god together with his personality. I have removed your heavy work, I have imposed your toil on man. In the clay, God and man shall be bound to a unity brought together, so that to the end of days their flesh and the soul which in a god have ripened, that soul in a blood kinship be bound." This first man was created in Eden, a Sumerian word which means flat terrain. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, Eden is mentioned as the Garden of the Gods and is located somewhere in Mesopotamia between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. Initially human beings were unable to reproduce on their own, but were later modified with the help of Enki and Ninki. Adapa was created as a fully functional and independent human being. This modification was done without the approval of Enki's brother, Enlil, and a conflict between the gods began. Enlil became the adversary of man. Chinese spacecraft carrying lunar rocks lifts off from Moon. A Chinese spacecraft lifted off from the Moon Thursday night with a load of lunar rocks, the first stage of its return to Earth, the government space agency reported. China spacecraft collects moon samples to take back to Earth. A Chinese spacecraft took samples of the moon's surface Wednesday as part of a mission to bring lunar rocks back to Earth. For the first time since the 1970s, the government said, adding to a string of successes for Beijing's How to build lasting support for Europe's Green Deal. Heather Grab is director of the Open Society European Policy Institute. If European leaders want to fight climate change, they will need to get European citizens on board and keep Canada authorizes COVID-19 vaccine from Pfizer and BioNTech. Canada became the third country to authorize use of the COVID-19 vaccine produced by Pfizer and BioNTech, racing ahead of the U.S. Food and Drug Administration and Europe's main regulator to approve shots to its most vulnerable citizens. Kim Jong-un's sister blasts top South Korean diplomat over pandemic. Remark. North Korea, quiet on foreign relations for months, vilified a top Seoul official over her recent remarks about Pyongyang's pandemic response and deployed an increasingly familiar mouthpiece, Kim Yo-jong, sister of the regime's leader. Biden vows to get 100 ml COVID-19 vaccine shots in first 100 days of presidency. UK should learn lessons from second Scottish COVID wave. Research suggests travel restrictions should have been tougher and earlier, says Sturgeon. Most Britons face bar from visiting European Union under COVID safety rules. Non-essential travel from UK will be subject to curbs after Brexit. Transition ends. London could face tighter COVID restrictions, warns Sadiq Khan. Mayor urges residents to avoid lowering their guard ahead of the festive season. Will wealthy Americans jump the queue for the COVID vaccine? Lots of people will try to get it early, even if no one admits to it. Amid the pandemic, over 500 people in India suddenly fall ill. And it has nothing to do with the coronavirus. Coronavirus vaccine from China's Sinopharm is 86% effective, UE officials say. The UE approved the vaccine for general use after trials in the country, the first official green light for a Chinese coronavirus vaccine for that purpose. Chinese spacecraft carrying lunar rocks lifts off from Moon. A Chinese spacecraft lifted off from the Moon Thursday night with a load of lunar rocks, the first stage of its return to Earth, the government space agency reported. China spacecraft collects moon samples to take back to Earth. A Chinese spacecraft took samples of the moon's surface Wednesday as part of a mission to bring lunar rocks back to Earth. For the first time since the 1970s, the government said, adding to a string of successes for Beijing's How to build lasting support for Europe's Green Deal. Heather Grab is director of the Open Society European Policy Institute. If European leaders want to fight climate change, they will need to get European citizens on board and keep Canada authorizes COVID-19 vaccine from Pfizer and BioNTech. Canada became the third country to authorize use of the COVID-19 vaccine produced by Pfizer and BioNTech, racing ahead of the U.S. Food and Drug Administration and Europe's main regulator to approve shots to its most vulnerable citizens. Kim Jong-un's sister blasts top South Korea diplomat over pandemic remark. North Korea, quiet on foreign relations for months, vilified a top Seoul official over her recent remarks about Pyongyang's pandemic response and deployed an increasingly familiar mouthpiece, Kim Yo-jong, sister of the regime's leader. Biden vows to get 100 ml COVID-19 vaccine shots in first 100 days of presidency. UK should learn lessons from second Scottish COVID wave. Research suggests travel restrictions should have been tougher and earlier, says Sturgeon. Most Britons face bar from visiting European Union under COVID safety rules. Non-essential travel from UK will be subject to curbs after Brexit transition ends. London could face tighter COVID restrictions, warned Sadiq Khan. Mayor urges residents to avoid lowering their guard ahead of the festive season. Will wealthy Americans jump the queue for the COVID vaccine? Lots of people will try to get it early, even if no one admits to it. Amid the pandemic, over 500 people in India suddenly fall ill. And it has nothing to do with the coronavirus. Coronavirus vaccine from China's Sinopharm is 86% effective, UE officials say. The UE approved the vaccine for general use after trials in the country, the first official green light for a Chinese coronavirus vaccine for that purpose. Simulated reality is the hypothesis that reality could be simulated for example by quantum computer simulation to a degree indistinguishable from true reality. It could contain conscious minds which may or may not be fully aware that they are living inside a simulation. This is quite different from the current, technologically achievable concept of virtual reality. A version of the simulation hypothesis was first theorized as a part of a philosophical argument on the part of René Descartes, and later by Hans Moravec. The philosopher Nick Bostrom developed an expanded argument examining the probability of our reality being a simulation. His argument states that at least one of the following statements is very likely to be true. Bostrom's argument rests on the premise that given sufficiently advanced technology, it is possible to represent the populated surface of the Earth without recourse to digital physics, that the qualia experienced by a simulated consciousness are comparable or equivalent to those of a naturally occurring human consciousness, and that one or more levels of simulation within simulations would be feasible given only a modest expenditure of computational resources in the real world. If one assumes first that humans will not be destroyed nor destroy themselves before developing such a technology, and that human descendants will have no overriding legal restrictions or moral compunctions against simulating biospheres or their own historical biosphere, then, Bostrom argues, it would be unreasonable to count ourselves among the small minority of genuine organisms who, sooner or later, will be vastly outnumbered by artificial simulations. Epistemologically, it is not impossible to tell whether we are living in a simulation. For example, Bostrom suggests that a window could pop up saying, "You are living in a simulation. Click here for more information." However, imperfections in a simulated environment might be difficult for the native inhabitants to identify, and for purposes of authenticity, even the simulated memory of a blatant revelation might be purged programmatically. Nonetheless, computationalism is a philosophy of mind theory stating that cognition is a form of computation. It is relevant to the simulation hypothesis in that it illustrates how a simulation could contain conscious subjects, as required by a virtual people simulation. For example, it is well known that physical systems can be simulated to some degree of accuracy. Some theorists have argued that if the consciousness is computation version of computationalism, and mathematical realism are true, then consciousness is computation, which in principle is platform independent and thus admits or simulation. This argument states that a Platonic realm or ultimate ensemble would contain every algorithm, including those which implement consciousness. A dream could be considered a type of simulation capable of fooling someone who is asleep. As a result, the dream hypothesis cannot be ruled out, although it has been argued that common sense and considerations of simplicity rule against it. One of the first philosophers to question the distinction between reality and dreams was Zhuangzi, a Chinese philosopher from the 4th century BC. Once Zhuangzi dreamt he was a butterfly flitting and fluttering around, happy with himself and doing as he pleased. He didn't know he was Zhuang Zai. Suddenly he woke up and there he was, solid and unmistakable, as Zhuang Zai. But he didn't know if he was Zhuang Zai who had dreamt. He was a butterfly or a butterfly dreaming he was Zhuang Zai. The philosophical underpinnings of this argument are also brought up by Descartes, who was one of the first Western philosophers to do so. In Meditations on First Philosophy, he states, "There are no certain indications by which we may clearly distinguish wakefulness from sleep," and goes on to conclude that it is possible that I am dreaming right now and that all of my perceptions are false. New 2D Ruddleston Popper, RP, LED perovskite-based solar cells. Artificial visual system of record low energy consumption for the next generation of AI. Scientists publish open resource to help design greener energy systems. Google, Harvard unveil Android medical research app. SoftBank sells controlling stake in Boston Dynamics to Hyundai. Automating material matching for movies and video games. China's auto sales rise in November, but down for the year. virtual reality battlefield technology designed to train military leaders. Up to 90% of electricity from solar and wind, the cheapest option by 2030. Predicting British railway delays using artificial intelligence. Facebook employees won't be required to get a COVID-19 vaccine. Qualcomm aims to jumpstart smart cities tech with new plug-and-play subscription suite. Researchers use machine learning to develop more accurate COVID-19 diagnostic tool. Airbnb shares more than double in price in long-awaited IPO. The Sony Walkman TPSL2 was released 40 years ago this summer, forever changing the way the world listened to music. It became arguably the most iconic brand in Sony's history, with hundreds of devices bearing the name and continuing to be released today. To celebrate the Walkman's legacy, Sony held an exhibit in Tokyo until this week called Walkman in the Park. The venue is Ginza Sony Park, a new public space that sits on their site of the iconic old Sony building that was recently demolished. Another Sony building will be constructed here next year. I'm no stranger to seeing a bunch of awesome old Sony products on display, but Walkman in the Park was a little different. The focus was on the experience of actually using the products and how they made you feel. You could listen to music on cassettes through cheap plastic headphones, while reading quotes from people who used that Walkman at their time. The layout of the exhibit was inspired by a skate park. You could sit on a ramp and listen to early hip-hop on an original TPSL2. Perhaps because we live in a world of vanishing headphone jacks, the TPSL2's dual output was frequently highlighted.
They're known now as T-Square, very famous Japanese jazz fusion band, and this is probably one of their first. They're known now as T-Square, very famous Japanese jazz fusion band.
Iran protests to Turkey over alleged meddling by Erdogan. Turkish president recited an Azeri-Iranian poem about division of Azerbaijan's territory between Russia and Iran. Nuclear war between India and Pakistan a visible reality, AJK president. World would pay a heavy price if global community does not come forward to resolve Kashmir dispute, says Masood Khan. No deal on Brexit trade very likely, British Prime Minister Johnson says. AstraZeneca hitches ride with Russia's Sputnik vaccine race. Trials will start by end of the year and Russia wants to jointly produce new vaccine if it is proven to be effective. Erdogan says US sanctions would disrespect Turkey. Confronting Turkey with a matter like Qatar is disrespectful to a very important NATO partner, says Turkish President. At least 2 hurt in suspected bomb attack in Russia's North Caucasus. Armenian protesters try to storm government building. More than 40 people arrested in protests demanding Prime Minister's resignation. This installation connects a TPSL2 to a newer digital Walkman and Sony's excellent WH-1000XM3 noise-cancelling headphones. To what end? I am not entirely sure. The Hindu calendar, also called Panchanga, is an ancient time reckoning system used for, among other things, determining the dates of Hindu festivals. It is a lunar solar calendar with many regional variations. One of the most striking features of the Hindu calendar system is its intricacy. It offers a multidimensional method of structuring time, combining information about lunar days, lunar months, solar months, the movements of the sun and the moon in relation to stellar constellations, and other astronomically defined time spans. Pakistan reiterates support for peaceful, stable Afghanistan. Says Prime Minister Imran has consistently maintained that conflict in Afghanistan can only end through political settlement. Pakistan reiterates support for peaceful, stable Afghanistan. Afghan Ambassador Najibullah Alikil calls on FM Qureshi, says official statement. Female journalist killed by gunmen in Afghanistan. An incident that underscores an increasing trend of violence against journalists in the country. Viral image of Australian soldier drinking beer out of dead Taliban fighters' leg sparks outrage. Afghan raiders seek another border crossing near Torkham. Ambassador Sadiq says trade diplomacy should continue irrespective of political environment. Pak-US relations and the Afghan factor. Musharraf's decision to join the US in the war on terrorism was made out of necessity. This makes the Hindu calendar vastly more complex than their Western calendar, which is built around only two basic units of time: solar days and solar years. To complicate things even further, there is not one single Hindu calendar. Each country and region uses its own variant of the ancient system. The Indian National Calendar or Sarkar calendar, the official standardized calendar of India since 1957, represents but one of many variations of the Hindu calendar. Still, there are some features that are common to all or most variants. The Hindu calendar uses a lunar solar system, meaning that it takes into account the apparent movements of both the moon and their sun, as seen from Earth. It is primarily based on the length of a synodic lunar month. Each of the 12 lunar months in the calendar encompasses their time it takes the moon to orbit the Earth in relation to the Sunday. Each lunar month is divided into 30 lunar days. These are further grouped into two fortnights with 15 days each. A bright fortnight that comprises the waxing half of the phases of the moon, and a dark fortnight that features a waning moon. In most areas in northern India, the month starts on their full moon, while most people in southern India count the days of the month from one new moon to the next. Since 12 lunar months amount to only 354.367 days on average, a leap month is added about every 3 years. This synchronizes the calendar with the length of a sidereal year, which is the time it takes Earth to orbit the Sun in relation to fixed stars. An average sidereal year lasts about 365.256 days. Hindu time reckoning applies a similar correction mechanism to keep lunar days and solar days in sync. It defines a lunar day as the time span in which the moon moves 12 degrees in relation to the sun, a 30th of the 360 degrees it travels during a synodic lunar month. A solar or civil day is defined by the moment of sunrise. This makes the Hindu calendar vastly more complex than their Western. If a lunar day starts and ends in the course of one solar day, a day is omitted in the calendar, so the date may jump from the 5th to the 7th of the month, for example. On the other hand, if to complicate things even further, there is not one single Hindu calendar. Each country and region uses its own variant of the ancient system. The Indian national calendar also Hezbollah-linked killer of ex-Lebanese Prime Minister sentenced to 5 life terms. Update survey shows 58% of Russians trust Putin. Pollster. Russian, Syrian foreign ministers to discuss situation in Syria on December 17 in Moscow. Russian police detain Iranian national in Moscow. Suspect may be linked to $250 million theft. Greek Syriza party slams Prime Minister for failure to protect national Interest in European Union. Update: 38 Taliban militants killed by Afghan forces in Kandahar Defense Ministry. Two-thirds of French citizens to comply with Covid-19 curfew on New Year Eve poll. Sputnik V vaccine for doctors, teachers delivered to all but 2 Russian regions. Minister. Germany to resume expulsion of Syrians posing security risks from 2021. Bavarian official. Putin says Russia may devise response to offense against Russians abroad. "38 Taliban militants killed by Afghan forces in Kandahar Defense Ministry." Russia's Vector plans to unload 10,000 doses of its vaccine weekly before 2021. Director. Facebook has paid hundreds of contractors to listen to and transcribe snippets of users' conversations, media reported on Tuesday, amid heightened scrutiny of the social network's data collection practices. Facebook acknowledged the transcriptions, which were first reported by Bloomberg, telling the news agency in a statement that they were made with users' permission, but that the practice has nonetheless been stopped. Mexico's central bank braces for fight over dollar buying bill. Lawmakers consider legislation requiring banks to absorb unwanted foreign currency. European Union states surged to push UK into new talks in event of no-deal Brexit. Member states told not to break ranks or consider side deals, as incentive must be maintained. UK faces pricier food and possible shortages in no-deal Brexit. U.S. Congress clears defense bill in defiance of Trump veto threat. Lawmakers tee up confrontation with the president after approving $740 billion legislation. European Union recovery deal to alter permanently blocks crisis-fighting approach. European Union leaders surmounted divisions to achieve historic €750 billion package involving common borrowing. China pulls back from the World Rethinking Xi's project of the century. Chinese overseas lending has fallen sharply amid a reassessment of the Belt and Road Initiative.